Hello everybody, Cody here, Boss Poses, and today I'm going to be showing you guys another really fun tutorial since it's been a little while since we went into the tutorial thing. So I'm going to be releasing this on TikTok and I'll be releasing this on YouTube as well. And today we're going to be looking at the 2D animation software called Moho 14. So there's two major softwares in the world that you can use for animation. There's two different softwares that are relatively easy to use. You could use Blender for 2D animation, but it can get quite complex. So I recommend one of the two, and that's Toon Boom or Moho 14. Moho 14 being the most user-friendly, and I find the funnest to use and the most updated. And you can find a lot of content and tutorials on YouTube compare to Toon Boom Studio, so that's what we're going to use today. I'm going to teach you guys how to rig a character. I'm also going to be teaching you guys how to use smart bones. So I'm going to show you how you can rotate the head just by flexing a few layers inside of the software. So basically all we're going to do is create a bone on the side of it. We're going to rotate that and we're going to put it on a certain frame, turn the head. And on that frame, every time we rotate this bone, it's going to turn the head with it. So I'm going to show you guys how to do all this. It's super fun, so make sure you do have a computer and you have Moho 14. You can get a trial version on their website at moho.com, so go check that out and let us get started. Alright everybody, now that we're inside of Moho, we're actually just going to start doing some very primitive shapes just to show you how to rig a character. So just pay close attention because we're also going to be making the head turn at the same time, and this involves an extra step, but this is really simple to achieve as well. So the first thing I want you guys to look at is down in your timeline. You'll notice that anything after actually changes the tools. Anything after 0, if you put this timeline header into the 0, you can re-edit anything. So that's basically edit mode, and you just push forward in the timeline when you want to start animating. So let's go ahead and get some shapes into here. So when you open up Moho, it's going to look like this. The first thing we want to do is actually click these primitive shapes up here, just as you would in Photoshop. And we're just going to draw a basic head to start. So I'm going to make the head like that. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is come over into the right side of the panel where you see the delete layer, you see your layer 1 and stuff like that. We're going to click this little file button with the plus next to it, and we're going to add another vector. So this allows us to add another layer, so we're going to put each body piece on a different layer. And up at the top, just change this to a square, so you can just kind of get like a little square-shaped body going here. So we'll just do the upper body and the arms just to start, and then I'll show you how to do switch layers as well, which is really simple. And I'm going to show you the beauty of Moho. So I'm going to show you something that's really hard to do inside of Toon Boom. So what I want you to do is click this button up here. It's called Add Point. So after you draw your shape, you're going to see a bunch of other tools show up. So a bunch of these is just so you can flex these little points right here on your thing, and you can add more. So I want you to go to the add point. We're going to add a point here. One at the bottom. You don't have to do the bottom, but I do want you to do the ones at the side like this. So make sure you add 4 of them. I always add 4, and this will allow us to flex the body. Instead of having to do 2 parts for the body for the upper chest and the lower chest, we can just do it all as one part with flexi binding. So that's the beautiful thing about Moho, is it has flexi binding. So in case you're wondering what that's called, so let's just move that over a bit. So just push that there. Okay, so now we need to start creating some arms. So I need to go to vector, and we're going to go back into our shape. I'm just going to create a basic little arm like that, and then we're going to keep going into vector until we get the arm that we want. So we're just going to add one more for that side. Okay, so now that we have an arm there, so what I can actually do is come back, hit my select tool, and copy this. I'm going to go back to 4 so that we can get it all into one layer. And then when I paste this in, what's a name? I can just move that over there and they'll be exactly the same. So this works really well from just doing arms. So just copy the last one you did, go to the last layer you made, and then just hit the new vector. That way it puts it in order automatically. Okay, so we're just going to paste that in there. Okay, so now we have the arms. So you don't have to assemble the character. We can do that after we rig it. And rigging in Moho is a very simple thing to do. So down where your layer properties are, the thing we want to hit right now, instead of going into vector, we're going to add a bone layer. And then what we're going to do is take everything from inside of here. And then what we're going to do is drag and drop that all inside of the bone layer. And then when you hit the little arrow, all of your layers should be inside of one bone layer. Okay. So now we should be able to see these new tools after we click the top layer here with the bone next to it. You'll see that we have an add bone. So the first bone that you add inside of your character, you always want this to be off of the character, because when you click and move this bone, it's going to move the entire character. So this is your position bone. So let's go ahead and start drawing the other bone. So remember, we're going to do 2 for the chest. So let's stop about halfway. So that'd be about there, I would say. We'll bring that up, and it is parented, so you want to keep an eye out on which one you're doing. So at this point, now that we did the head, we want to come up into the bone select tool, select the chest. That way these arms are parented to the chest instead of the head. And then what we're going to do is just draw these bones inside of our layers. And then again, select your bone back into the chest, draw your layer. Just like that. And then what we're going to do later is create another bone that's off the side of this that you can use to control the head, which is going to be a lot of fun to do. So I'll show you how to rotate the head just by moving a bone. It's called a smart bone, but I'm just going to show you how to rig a basic character for now. So the next thing we want to do is look below where our add bone tool is and go into bone strength. And we just want to minimize these layers to match the shape of our objects. This is our influence. So, whoop, bring that one just about the same size. Bring this down, bring this down. And now when I start moving the bones, you're going to notice that the chest flexes. And that's the beautiful thing about Moho. And if you wanted to remove that, all you have to do is select both of these bones, come up into bone, and then click FlexiBind Layer, and you won't have that issue. We might have that with the arms. As you see, the body and the arms are starting to flex along with the head, so we can fix that right now as well. So let's just make sure all of the bones work. So as you see, our character is pretty much already rigged. And that's the magical thing about Moho. But for now, we have to go back through the layers and then FlexiBind them because we don't want these arms to have any influence, like to warp up any of the layers that we're doing. So what we want to do is go into our Select Bone tool. We want to come down into our layers and find out which layer this is. So with the Select Bone tool, we're just going to click that. We know this is on the correct layer because we can see the outline of our shape here. And then what you're going to do is Control-Shift-F to bind it to that layer. We're going to come up to Bone and then hit FlexiBind Layer. We're going to do the same thing for the next one. Click thing, bind, bone, and FlexiBind Layer. We can do the same thing for the head as well. So let's find our layer 1, head, Control-Shift-F to bind it to that layer, and then bone, FlexiBind. Now when we go ahead and we start moving the head around, you'll notice that it doesn't warp its shape. It just warps the body, but it's not warping that other arm over there. So now when we move this arm, we have no influence over each other. So as you see now, that's not warping the shape as it does on the other one, right? So we're going to continue doing that for all of those shapes there. And I'm going to show you how to reposition it to be back on the character. Okay, so again, go back into your Select Bone tool. We're going to go down and find these layers. So that's going to be this one. Okay, Control-Shift-F, bone, FlexiBind. You can select them all at once and do this, but just be careful that you don't select the chest because you don't want to FlexiBind these or you'll lose that bend that you get in here. So that's the reason why we do that. I always leave the chest like that. So Control-Shift-F again, bone, FlexiBind layer. Now we should be good to go for FlexiBinding. So now when I move the arm, the only thing that flexes is a little bit of the chest. We can fix that as well by changing the FlexiBind of this or its influence. So if we lower the influence on this, like those little lines there, now when we move it, we shouldn't have as much going on. And we can also do it on the arm as well. Okay. And then what we're going to do is re-offset the character before we start doing the head turn things. So. And we got that little bind right there, which is really nice. We can also probably FlexiBind this if we really wanted to. So we could even get just try it. So let's go ahead and select layer 2. F, FlexiBind. And let's just see what happens when we do that. It's all about experimenting. See how we lost that FlexiBind in there? But now the arms don't manipulate the influence on this, but we can do this a different way as well. So we're just going to go back. And that takes the FlexiBind off, so we just want to get our binding back. There we go. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is go over into our bone tool up at the top. We're actually going to do two things here. Is we're going to lower the influence on this positional bone to 0 because you don't want this to have any influence. And the reason why I told you to make that off is because that controls the entire position of your character. And yes, you can go back on your layers and start drawing on them now if you wanted to, make your character vibrant and stuff like that. But now we can just organize our layers, right? So we're going to find layer 1. So the head is always going to be on top of the body. And we want the arms to be under the body, so we're just going to put that on the top. We're going to go, once we're inside the bone layer again, we're going to select it, and then what we're going to do is come down into offset bone, and here's where you can start putting your character together. And you can also go in and erase these lines if you want, but just for the sake of the tutorial, we'll just do it this way. And our head should be over top of the body. So again, let's bring our head up there. And now when we click that again, you'll see that we have a character. And now when we go in to pose the character, you'll see that we can do that, right? So now you have the basic idea of how to rig a character in Moho, and it's honestly that simple. And you can just move through on the timeline and just move your character, and then you can just start animating like that. But there's another thing that I want you guys to do, and that's learn how to do smart bones. So what we're going to do is go to layer 1, and we're just going to draw some features on layer 1. So let's go ahead and create an eye. So don't worry about if it disassembled. That's only because we're back in edit mode. If I went back into bone mode, it will reassemble again. So don't worry about that. So as soon as you click a tool, it's going to do that. So let's just get some eyes on this guy just to show you. So let's make them circles. And since we're drawing on layer 1 that's already bound to the head, it's already going to be tied in, so you don't have to flexi bind anything. You can even draw a mouth, and I'm going to show you about switch layers in another tutorial, where you can just draw it or import a different set of mouths and just switch between them as you animate, instead of having to grab mouth bones or something like that. You don't have to do any of that in Moho. So let's just draw a quick little nose. So just to show you that that is on the character still, when we go into our manipulate pose, you'll see that the head rotates with the body, right? So that's perfect. So let's go into our bone mode. Let's create a new bone now. So let's go ahead and just create one little bone right here off of the side of the thing. Go into its influence and turn its influence all the way down, and do one more thing. Go next to that influence button, go to the reparent, and delete that parent from the first. You do not want this bone parented to anything else. In fact, you can actually leave these controls off of this screen if you want to have better access, and you can make hundreds of them if you want, okay? So the next thing I want you to do is actually go back into your bone select tool. With that bone selected, I want you to come up into bone constraints, angle constraint. I want you to change this to -90 and +90. So it's already set, so just change each of the 7s to a 9 and hit enter, and it'll look like a T like this. This only allows the bone to go 90 degrees, okay? So the next thing we want to do is open up our actions window. And this is really simple too, so don't worry, this isn't going to be difficult. Once you open that up, that's all that looks like, and we can just create an action for the head. So each time we move this bone, it's going to replay that action animation that we're about to make, okay? So now that we have that bone selected, the next thing we can do is just pretty much go ahead and start making actions. So we're going to click this little tab here. We're going to hit it, and that's going to be B9. I believe that's how we do that here. Okay, and what we're going to do is come up to frame 96. We're going to go into our rotate bone tool. We're going to grab the bone and shift it down like this. With the bone all the way down, do not move anything on your timeline. Come into your layer. And then what we're going to do is select this. So you can just click in the center and say we want this that direction to make him look that way, right? So he's going to look like that. So you can just redraw it if you want, restretch all of the shapes. I'm just going through to click them. So I'll show you what I mean by restretch. You can even grab these points if you really wanted to and stretch them out to make it look more like a nose. So we can have it like that. And that's pretty much it. And you're pretty much done already for doing a head turn. And you can go the other way. So if you want to do another action, just grab your rotate tool, put it the other direction. So from right here, you're finished with doing that. Just click your main line right here, double click it, and you'll go back. Click your bone layer. Click your rotate bone tool. And now every time we move that bone to the side, he will look sideways. Like, that's incredible for 2D animation software. So if you're a really good artist, you can make that look incredible. And you can make hundreds of these controls, and I can still position the head any way I want. and still rotate the head any way I want, right? That's incredible. Okay, so let's put the arms down. I'm going to show you another thing called switch layers. Now, switch layers are a really amazing tool, say if you wanted to create legs without actually having to create anything rigged. So now all we have to do is get rid of all of that. So let's just make sure we are on frame 1. And the first thing we want to do is come into our layer here, and we want to add a switch layer, and that's going to create an entirely new layer for us to achieve. So what we want to do is bring that into our bones, so we can drag that whole folder in, okay? Actually, leave that out of your folder, so don't drag that in yet. What we're going to do is create a new vector, and we're going to drag that into that new switch layer that we just created. So this is going to be leg position 1. So if I were to go ahead and draw a set of legs, so let me just grab my pen tool. Bring this up to about 9. Let's just pretend these are his legs, right? So that's leg set 1 for our character. So let's go ahead and create another vector. And as you see, the legs will disappear. So let's make him running like that. And then we'll just keep creating vectors and they'll keep disappearing. So he'll have legs crossed. Hell, we'll do another vector. And then we'll do another idle vector. You could do anything. You could do this with arms too. That way you don't have to rig the arms. And if you notice that they all grayed out down here. So anytime, so now you can close this entire folder and leave those leg layers in there just to save space. And you can right click it and click on whatever one you want it to show. And you can do this through the animation, especially if you wanted to do mouse and lip sync to audio, because you can do that and import it. You can just do switch layers. And this will move with the character because it's now inside of our bone layer, which we will do. So we have to click this, drag that into our bone layer. So now anytime we move this character, our legs move with it as well. Oops, I gotta grab the bone layer. Oop, manipulate bone, sorry. Now as you see, our legs are stuck with the character. Now I'm gonna show you how to animate. So let's go to frame 1, and you're gonna notice all your frame tools change. So let's just move the character, and you're going to notice we get keyframes down there. Let's go to frame 6. So he brings up. Let's right-click our switch layer, change our legs to an open one like that. And let's go down to 12 again. So we'll go over to 12, and we'll move our character. So we get to click our bone layer. Or sorry, manipulate bone tool. We're going to bring them down. We're going to right click our switch layer and then we're going to make it that idle leg. Okay. And now when I play this back, you'll notice that we have an animation with switch layers, and it's that easy if you're just trying to make parody animations. Like you can make, it's so much fun to use this software, right? And then if you wanted to animate the head, like all of our bones are still here, our head control is still here. So just click your bone layer. You can even close it if you wanted to have multiple characters, and everything is in one bar. Okay. So then when we move the character's arms, so say we're at frame 6, but as you see, we don't have flexi binding on our leg layers, and we can fix that later, but you already know how to do that just by going to bone, flexi bind. But say if I wanted to move the arm down, and then up, and you can just keep pushing it like that, right? And as you see, we got the start to an animation. If we want to turn his head here, we can start moving. And now his head sideways, right? Now, we'll just bring his arm down here. We can make this arm in front of him because this arm technically would be on this side if he was walking. But again, you can make another switch layer for him to turn his body now as well. And then we'll put these arms up like that. Like someone's pointing a gun at him, right? And that's how you use Moho. You can do backgrounds, you can do 3D parallax things. Like you got pan, tilt, camera. So let me go back into my animation here. You should be able to, and as you see, I can make this into a 3D layer. So if you wanted to make like a Disney panoramic and have multiple layers as a background, you could do that as well. Add another background and push it back further into the scene. And you can do that with these layer transform tools right here. So I could shear the layer, right? But we don't want to do that. We can even just shift it. So if we want to push it back further into the scene, you can move your camera around, but we'll learn that in a different tutorial, and we'll learn about this shifting layer stuff in another one. I'll teach you how to do multi-plane animations. But if you like today's video, please do like and subscribe. I love teaching you guys how to do these things in Moho, and Moho is one of the best softwares that you can use, because look how fast we made this, and just imagine what you could do in a week of learning this tutorial. So thank you all for tuning in, and have yourselves a good evening. Take care.